You got to have grit to be in this industry. Whether it's the farm equipment business or whether you're a farmer, it's tough. It seems like there's so many things that are outside of your control. You're so dependent on the weather. It's tedious, it's challenging, it's different almost every day. And why do we do it? I think it's the best group of people that you could ever work with, in the world.
What is your goal for Bane-Welker in 5-10 years?
Well, my goal essentially is to take the company over the next decade to $1 billion company.
In terms of what not just Bane-Welker has experienced, but the industry as a whole, and really it sounds like now every industry, is attrition rate or lack of labor, or maybe even lack of labor that spends a long time with the business. I think technicians specifically. What do you think, if anything, solves that problem?
Well, a lot of it is just general attitude of people, and I'm fearful that this COVID experience that we've gone through for the past 2 or 3 years has changed the dynamic of our country as far as, you can't pay people to stay home forever and so-called work. In our industry, you have to pretty much show up for work. And this crop out here that's growing behind us, in a couple months they're going to be harvested, and it doesn't just harvest itself. So it takes hours, it takes dedication, it takes a lot of effort for all that to happen. And you can't do it sitting at home behind a computer screen. I mean, maybe someday you can with the autonomous vehicles and all that stuff. So there again, that's something beyond where we're at today. So you have to be looking forward, but you also have to be realistic in what does today look like. What's it going to take to get this year's crop out of the field? So, I mean, it takes everybody showing up for work, basically, is what I'm saying.
Like the wings.
farms from West Point. So they called in earlier, was having header calibration problems. And then we can kind of see how the head's kind of leaning to the right side. He wanted us to come up and adjust that out. So, right on. Well, shouldn't take too long. If it's somewhere close, we should be able to get it done pretty quick. 2162.
It ain't bad, man, but it's a little bit up. You can tell I zeroed the heater house.
It's smiling quite a bit.
Yeah.
Just zeroing out this feeder faceplate here. You can see it on here, just trying to get it to kind of go to 0 like that. And then we will set the float on it. So float kind of happens if there's like a rock in the field or something. These springs here kind of pick up the weight of the header to let it glide over it. But I kind of want it to be in more level ground here. Because if, I guess if the head's kind of leaning towards the right, the float will also lean towards the right too. And these heads here are a little different because they want the weight on each end to feel like you're picking up 50 pounds. And your 50 pounds might be different than my 50 pounds. And honestly, it's not too terribly bad the way it is. But we'll get out and adjust this float here.
If these guys aren't around, are you able to get through a season on your own, or what's that look like?
Probably not. No. I mean, I can make some of these adjustments, but these guys are experts. I come from a mechanical background. I have a bachelor's degree in automotive technology.
Okay.
And so the man who used to run our farm retired, and I kind of stepped into his place and didn't know anything. Fu is the man. I mean, I didn't know anything about combines, even how to run a combine, and Fu showed me. And I think it was Jake showed me planner.
Okay.
And so everything I've learned from these guys, and they've kept me running and, you know, kept our business productive. I call Dan the man too. He is very good, man. I think a lot of all the techs up there, I mean, they're just good guys.
I guess you kind of like the way it floats.
Yeah, I have no problem with the way it floats as long as it does float.
Right.
They've never left me stranded, I'll say that.
Yep.
And anytime I need anything, whether it be a rental or a, you know, help with something like this, they always there, always willing to help. Good attitude helps a lot too.
Yeah, totally.
How old are you, Dan?
26.
So you're like 23 probably when I met you, about 3 years ago.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago.
I was gonna say you came a long way, but I folded this thing one time. I hit a rock in the field.
Oh yeah.
The ledger was just crumpled all the way up like this, just staring at the sky. And Andrew came out, cut it off, put it back together. We put a sickle in it, and away we went. It was amazing, man. I got all kinds of stories like that. Without them, I don't think that we'd be yielding what we yield, and you know, the bottom line would be different.
Well, we got a hell of a frown, so that's how they want these heads to run.
You're fixed.
For now, we found some stuff that's broken and bent,
Oh, you ain't kidding.
so I got it to where he'll be able to run it today. It'll be good for it, let everything wear in, being that this is the first field, and then we'll check it all again tomorrow.
What's it taken to get to this point?
Well, there's a lot of history, right, in my mind that we could reflect on. We could spend hours just sitting here talking about the history to have gotten to the point of 15 locations today spread across 250 miles of geography and 2 states.
Any thoughts on that, on just the significance of starting out where they did?
Just to have that foresight, to be able, and the energy and the drive to go do something like that and make it work in a small town in particular is probably as unique as you can get.
We are standing in front of the old block building where basically we used to have our parts location for the case parts. Let me go back farther. My parents bought this property, I think, in 1953 or 54. Lived in the house next door and operated a gas station down at the north end of town, Marathon, 2 pumps.
I worked as a waitress in the restaurants when I was a kid. So it was 1953, we decided that we'd get into the restaurant because I like to cook. And we done very well. We was in there for 5 years. Kenneth drove a truck for Dallas Mavis.
Then in 1957, they moved the filling station operation here and started up as a DX station instead of Marathon. I was pumping gas when I was 7, 8 years old.
Kenneth says, I just don't like being gone like this. And why don't we just go down to the other end of town where we lived? And there was a block building that was a garage. And he said, I think we can put in gas pumps down there because there was gas pumps at one time in front of the building. And he said, we'll just make a living down there because it'd be much handier. And we went down there and we had more than we could handle with business because he was he could weld, taught himself to weld.
He was a hands-on. He would go out in the shop and put tillage tools together. If it needed done and we were short-handed in the shop, he was back there turning wrenches. He wasn't just a office type guy. He could weld. He could fix anything. I mean, very talented.
And he made beds for Indiana Oxygen and made several trailers, semi-trailers. We'd go to, I believe it was St. Louis, Missouri, and get the tandems. And he started building them, and then we had to build a building across the road.
And across the road in 1963 or 1964, he built that building because he worked on semi-trailers and trucks. He put tandem axles underneath the semis and so on.
We had DX gas, Firestone tires sold, and we used to pump fluid in the tires, at the tractor tires. Well, after we was pretty busy with the semis, Kenneth was getting tired. It was hard work.
So he looking for a new opportunity and signed up with the Case Company to become a case dealer.
And he says he'd seen this ad, but he never told me. And this guy come along, Bob Costin.
Anything good going on over here?
We got through it. What do you recall about Kenneth Bane?
Well, I just remember calling him and checking it out and going over and seeing him, and then we sat down and started talking a little bit about being a dealer and what it would take. And I mean, it was nothing compared to the world today. It was quiet, and a few $1,000s was what you were talking about, not millions or billions.
Well, he was honest.
And, you know, he was just a nice, quiet young man, and him and Pat, I met Pat, and as he said, she wasn't real interested in getting into business, but he wanted to get into it, and so we got together and went over a bunch of things and what it would take to get into business.
Of course, he had to tell me then what he'd done. So he came and talked to Kenneth, and we signed the contract at the kitchen table.
Shortly, they hadn't finally got them in business and got everything signed up, and they went into business, and just in a few days, they sold that 1030 tractor that we're talking about. I remember that one.
He said he knew from the start that we would make it because the way we worked.
After that, it seemed like sold quite a bit of equipment. There's no doubt about it.
This was the first tractor that my dad sold as a case dealer. It's a 451 cubic inch engine that has a power cell injection system on it instead of direct injection like we have today. Ran about 1,800 RPMs, wide open. Developed 101 horsepower on the PTO. The second or third tractor that my dad sold was to Harvey Duncan out here west of Wingate. It was a 930, same profile tractor, same size fuel tank, everything pretty much identical except it was a 401 cubic inch engine instead of 451. So Harvey, when he bought the tractor, he came in here and picked it up one morning. About 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, coming down the street was a 4020 tractor with chain and the 930 tractor on behind it. And Harvey was sitting up there guiding it because it wouldn't run. The 930 wasn't running. And he got off and come up and he said, "Kenny, she's already quit me." And my dad got to checking it out, and lo and behold, it was out of fuel. So no wonder it wouldn't run. Harvey, I guess it just didn't register with him that the fuel gauge up there said E on it. They all had a good laugh over it. Family's still good customers of ours today here at the Wingate store. So it's a long-term relationship. You were talking about the perception that you just made it rich quick, like you hit an oil well or something. That wasn't the case. It's been developing over years with these area farmers, and those relationships are invaluable, to be honest about it. You can't put a dollar figure on those folks.
Harvest is kind of more of a marathon. Yeah. You prepare for it and you understand it, and of course guys get antsy, but they know it takes a while to get that out of the field plant. Mother Nature just doesn't give you much of a time frame to do it. You got a window, you go.